Welcome back to the BMW Blog YouTube channel and welcome to a new review of a BMW car. Today I'm behind the wheel of the 2024 BMW X5 M competition facelift. I'm actually in Monterey for the car week and naturally I get to drive some new BMWs, of course. My choice for today is the new X5 M competition in Santorini blue. And as you can see in this footage, it is an absolutely stunning color from the BMW individual. In this video, I'm gonna give you a drive review of the car, of course. We're gonna talk about a brand new engine under the hood, and then of course we will focus on the exterior and interior design. So let's kick it off right away with the driving experience. That's the most interesting part about the new X5 M. As I said, brand new engine, S68, 617 horsepower, and it comes with new technology like the 48-volt mild hybrid. Why is that important as far as the driving experience? Because you're getting a little bit more power than in the predecessor X5 M, and then of course because that little motor is integrated into the ZF 8-speed transmission, then you get better shifting, a little bit more power, and of course better MPG, so you are saving on the fuel as well. Since I mentioned the additional power in the 48-volt mild hybrid system, I can give you some exact specs. 12 additional horsepower and 148 pounds-feet of torque come from the 48-volt system, and of course this one also acts as a starter generator. This is still your typical BMW X5 M, so there were not a lot of changes done to the overall car. There are just a few mechanical changes done to the BMW X5 M and of course to the XXM competition models, and that starts with some revised dampers and rear suspension tweaks, and all of this work together to actually give you better high-speed stability, especially when cornering at high speed. There is additional bracing from what I heard underneath the car and also possibly in other areas of the car, and that's going to give this X5 M a little bit more rigidity. I'm not sure I was able to feel that, especially if you're not pushing the car really hard and cornering really hard, then you won't be able to really see or feel these changes. The S68 does make a difference though, because it has a little bit of a different character compared to the S63, which is being replaced by this one. I've been driving this car from San Francisco to Monterey, so a little bit of highway driving. Of course, I've hit some of those curvy roads around Monterey and of course on the way down here, so I really had a chance to test out the engine. The power band, I can feel immediately that it's a little bit different. This one seems to be a little bit more eager to deliver that torque from even lower RPM. I don't recall the exact RPM band, but just driving the car, it does feel a little bit more punchy, even in the lower gears when you're flooring the gas pedal. The transmission has been changed just a little bit, and according to BMW, it does come with better cooling components and new gear ratios. And that's likely because of the new S68 engine and the way it delivers the power, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. In this car, I feel like there is a wider ratio spread than before. And also, the one thing that I've noticed immediately was that the first three gears are now a little bit shorter. Speaking of the driving experience, it does come with your typical different BMW modes, from comfort to efficient, and of course all the way up to sport and sport plus. And as always, you can absolutely customize how the X5 M feels on the road or even driving in a city. Okay, so let me focus a little bit also on the driving modes because I've mentioned them. If I go into the setup system for the car, of course I have the option to adjust the engine, the chassis, the steering, the brake, and of course even the MX drive system. As always, I want to go through all the settings to see what a car feels like. I've been driving mostly in efficient and comfort from San Francisco to Monterey. It was a little bit of a boring drive, but once I hit this curvy roads around 17-mile drive in Pebble Beach, then I definitely want to go to sport, so let's do that. So the engine goes up to Sport Plus. Of course you have the chassis also Sport Plus, and steering as well, and brake. So immediately I can feel that the X5 M, it's a little bit sharper overall, something that of course you expect to get once you start using that sport mode. You might hear the engine sound as well. a little bit more aggressive. Of course, the shifting gets a little bit more precise and faster. It is a little bit jerky once you go into the sport mode, but that's by design. The overall chassis definitely stiffens up. Once again, I'm not telling you anything new. If you've been driving BMWs for the last few years, you know what to expect from the different settings in the car. But compared to the predecessor, the pre-facelift model, I do feel like the driving modes are a little bit more spaced out. I think that's by design as well, because some of the other BMWs I've been driving the last few years have a similar character. So you are getting a wider gap in between comfort and sport, and essentially it serves a single purpose. If you want to have a family hauler with a lot of power and you want to drive fairly comfortable, then of course the comfort mode will deliver that and you won't be as aggressive as in sport. Now if you want to go more on the sporty side of the car, then of course by choosing the Sport or Sport Plus mode, you will get an absolutely different character in the X5 M. Of course, just like the S63, the S68 will get some additional boost in the turbos, so you will be able to drive a little bit faster, a little bit more dynamic than in the comfort mode. And of course, you are getting those nice blurbs, as you might be able to hear in this video, because the valves really open up and you get to enjoy the sound, the beautiful sound of the V8 engine, which I'm hoping it's not going away anytime soon. Might have heard the engine sound by now. Of course, I was doing some manual shifting with the gear lever right here. You do have the option to use the shift pedals behind the steering wheel, and they're quite cool in this car because they come in carbon fiber with those plus and minus red buttons right there. Naturally, the BMW X5 M competition facelift comes with the MX drive system. You can switch from a four-wheel drive to a four-wheel drive sport, which essentially will reduce the nanny controls in the car just a little bit to allow you to spin that rear end just a little bit more. Okay, so now it's time to talk about the design of the BMW X5 M, and I'm gonna pull up right here on the 17-mile drive, and I'm going to give you a full overview of the exterior and interior design, so don't go anywhere. Alright, so let's talk about the design of the new BMW X5 M. As you can see, immediately the car has changed quite a bit, and especially at the front end, and that starts with the headlights. You can see right here a brand new interpretation of the headlight, slimmer than before, and of course you have different inner graphics inside. It's still some sort of a double lamp in there, but they're actually negative design. That's what BMW calls them, a negative design. Essentially, they're a little bit slanted towards the left side. So once again, brand new headlights on the new X5 M. Next thing that has changed on the car are the kidney grills. You can see them right here, motorsport inspired, horizontal slats right there. Of course, a little bit bolder than before, and that's being accentuated by this auto grill right here, which is matte black painted. And of course you have this piano black on the bottom that's supposed to give the car a more luxurious look. Of course, a lot of us don't really love the piano black look, but nonetheless, BMW says their design choice was really because that piano black, it's meant to show the car having a more luxurious look. If that's true or not, I'm not sure, but I'm just telling you what I've learned from the designers. Continuing with the changes at the front, of course, you have a brand new sport package. So the M Sport package on the X5 M, it's different. They actually call this pack M Sport Pro package because it also brings additional blacked out accents around the car. But let's focus on the front end. As you can see, this whole geometry here has changed quite a bit from the pre-facelift model, and it is a little bit controversial because a lot of people don't like all these shapes up here. But once again, it does look bold and it does look really good, especially against this color. Speaking of the color, this is Santorini blue. It's not a standard color on the X5 M. It comes from BMW individual. There are 50 shades to pick from, and this is one of them. And I must say, it is such a good looking car. I did have a chance to drive a Boston Green X5 M the other day. That one looks fantastic, but seeing the Santorini blue right here in Monterey and 17-mile drive, it just fits perfectly. So front end design, once again, new headlights, new kidney grille, new front bumper. Now let's move to the side. Naturally, you won't see a lot of changes, but you do get these dual tone wheels on the car. Of course, massive as you would expect to see on an X5 M. 295 at the front by 35, 21 inches. And of course, you can also spec the car with different calipers. Right there, you have the red calipers on this car. Speaking of that M Sport Pro package at the front, I did mention some of the blacked out accents that come with it. And you will see them right here, this extended shadow line, all black right there. And of course, the trim on the doors too. So that gives the car a really nice contrast from the blue to the black. X5 M badges all around. Of course, BMW loves to show off their badges on the car, so no surprise there. Other than that, absolutely no changes from the front, but there are a few changes in the back. So if we walk around, that's gonna start with the taillights. And speaking of the taillights, they are brand new, yet they still wrap around the car quite nicely, and they have that BMW iconic L shape. As you can see, two horizontal bars kind of connecting together right there. Lots of shapes all around the taillight. They're quite angular and they give the car a very sporty and dynamic look. Yet you do have these really soft shapes that go really well with the sharp corners of the inner graphics. If you see this car at nighttime, especially from behind, and we're gonna show you that in the B-roll actually, because they look really, really nice at nighttime, they give the car not only a wider look in the back, but also a more luxurious yet sporty look. So that's the biggest change at the end. Then of course you have a minor change, the rear diffuser, slightly changed compared to the pre-facelift model, but nonetheless you won't really notice the immediate changes unless you put the cars side by side. Once again, piano black, but I believe you can actually spec the X5 M also with the M Performance parts, and you can get carbon fiber as well. Quad pipes, of course, as you'd expect to see on an M car, and I'm hoping that's not going to change for a while, even though we did see the X1 M35i also getting quad pipes, but that's a different story. Still have this beautiful roof spoiler. Of course, you had it on the previous model as well. I always love this design because it does give the car a very sporty look from the back. Black top badges all around. X5 M competition, of course, they only offer one model, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Once again, these are the changes on the outside of the BMW X5 M. Now let's go take a look inside, because I know some of you have been a little bit vocal about what happened inside the cabin. Let's go take a look. So the inside of the new BMW X5 M competition facelift. Before we talk about the tech changes, let's talk about this dual tone. I believe it's brown or either mocha with a black insert in the middle. It looks fantastic. Such a beautiful combination actually. I'm not usually a fan of brown interiors, but it works really, really well with this particular setup. Now let's talk about the biggest change inside the car. Of course, that's the large curved display. We've talked about this quite a bit, and we keep talking about it because it's been part of almost every single new BMW that came out, and of course it will be part of the X5 M. So once again, iDrive 8. I believe certain models starting summer of this year are able to upgrade to 8.5. So if you have a later production this year, you should be able to get the upgraded UI. Once again, I can turn it on. And of course, you might have heard that sound. We're going to talk about the sound in a second as well. But as I mentioned earlier, you have the iDrive 8 touchscreen, of course, and because of that, you're losing a lot of the physical buttons. Every single car that I review lately, I always mention this because it's a little bit annoying to me. I'm assuming it might be annoying to some customers as well, because you are losing a lot of the physical buttons right here. Everything has moved inside, especially the climate menu, which is probably the most used feature in the car. You need to control this via either voice or the touchscreen. The iDrive 8.5 does improve the UI, the layout of this, but that's a different story. So Cleaner design here, of course, and because of that you have this really nice integration of the vents. You can change the way the airflow goes, and you have this interaction bar right here. Of course, might be a little bit gimmicky, but it does look pretty good at nighttime. So that's the biggest change probably inside the car. Of course, you have plenty of trim options, carbon fiber right there naturally, and of course plenty of upholstery options as well. Steering wheel unchanged, typical M Sport steering wheel. I do wish the BMW will soon go towards this flat bottom steering that we've seen, for example, in the BMW i7 and 7 Series, because I think it looks quite cool. You are getting the shift paddles behind the steering, carbon fiber, of course. It's an M car, so you got to show that off. Speaking of carbon fiber, you can see the center dashboard, center console right here, featuring the same material. What I do like about the X5M compared to the X5 facelift, it's the fact that they are retaining the M gear shifter. So if you have seen my video with the new X5 facelift, you might have seen this one being replaced by this little toggle switch. It does look premium, it does look clean, but I just love holding onto this gear shift at a time. So just putting to the right, to the left, and controlling the shifts with that. So very happy that BMW retained this one. I am equally happy that they retain also the iDrive controller, because some newer BMWs are getting away with not having this one, and that's not ideal in my opinion. Of course, you have a panoramic roof. This is more of a luxury sporty SUV than a pure sports car like the M2. So of course you can get this very large panoramic roof with lights inside, and they do look really cool at nighttime as well. So pretty much these are all the changes that happened inside the car. Of course, this one being the most controversial one. It is still your typical BMW X5 M, seats for 5 people. It is quite spacious, and of course it is quite fun to drive, as you have seen. But before I continue my drive with the car, how about we pop up the hood and talk about the engine, because there is a major change under the hood. You might not be able to see immediately underneath the hood, but of course this one has a brand new engine. I'm saying of course because that engine is being used across multiple different models in the BMW lineup, including non-M models. It's called the S68. It's the successor of the popular S63, so it's still a 4.4 liter V8 twin turbo engine, and I'm excited about this engine because it sounds really good. Of course, you're still getting this very cool carbon fiber cover with all those red inserts. It always looks really cool to look at, and you can see this massive brace right here and another one right there, that V shape right there, because it's a quite heavy engine, so you need to keep it all tight in there, especially when you're cornering and you want that front end to be quite grippy. So S68, the biggest probably addition to the X5 M, aside for some of the design styling, and I would say this is probably why I'm excited to continue driving the car. So let's go for another ride. All right, so let's go for another drive now that we've talked about the design, and maybe focus a little bit more on the luxury aspect of the X5 M, because in the end, this car, it is a luxury SUV, even though it has a lot of power, and you can even take it to the track if you want to. This one comes in at about $124,000. Of course, if you keep adding packages and other features to the car, including this exclusive Santorini blue BMW individual paint, then it can get really expensive. And of course, you need to have something to back that up. And in this car, as I mentioned, I absolutely enjoy the leather, the brown and black two-tone combination. It does feel really premium, and it hugs you actually really nicely once you're cornering hard. I mean, those seats are great. As you'd expect, most of the BMW sports cars come with these great and nice gripping seats that are super enjoyable when you're going for spirited drives. I mentioned briefly the new BMW iDrive 8 and the curved display. Once again, it is less annoying when you're static, but of course when you drive and you need to focus on changing different features in the car, it is a little bit cumbersome compared to having those physical buttons. Of course, you need to do it by voice. The voice commands in iDrive 8, they're not great. They are a little bit better in iDrive 8.5. Nonetheless, it's iDrive 8. It is highly customizable. You can really push the customization inside that iDrive 8. Of course, the most used features in a car are probably the AC controls and of course the navigation. The navigation is fine, but the AC controls, it takes at least 2-3 clicks to get to the right point. I mean, you always have to go to climate menu and you have to adjust manually all these things. The UI does look a lot better in iDrive 8.5 and 9. Leather on the steering wheel, exactly what you expect in a luxury BMW. It feels great. Plenty of carbon fiber all around. This is a sports SUV, as I mentioned, so of course they need to emphasize that. I've also said in the interior design review that I am extremely happy that BMW has not moved away from the gear shifter. I know I don't get to use it a lot, but I just love to rest my hand on it most of the time versus having that little toggle switch that you get in the X5. It is a family SUV, of course, so you are getting seating for 5 people. 3 in the back clearly, so you can use this one as a soccer mom type of SUV if you want to, and I wouldn't be surprised to see this one, especially picking up kids from school or taking them to any sports practices. So in the end, you're not trading anything by having this one over an X5, for example. So if you're looking for some additional power and maybe a little bit more fun on the road, I do see why someone would actually buy the X5 M over, let's say, an X5. So while you are able to track the car if you want to, most likely you will find yourself driving in city centers quite a bit, and especially in stop-and-go traffic. And this is why I mentioned earlier the comfort mode, the softer mode in the BMW X5 M. If you do need to push the car quite hard, it is extremely capable, but overall don't expect any major changes compared to the outgoing model. Of course, the S68, it's a great engine. I've had a chance to test it in the new X7 facelift, also the new 760i, and it's going to be around for quite some time. So BMW X5 M competition facelift, it is on sale right now. You have the option to get the X5 M or the S6M. There is no more base model, so essentially you're only getting the competition. That's something that BMW tends to do mid-cycle with some of their products. Would I buy this one over a BMW X5? Let's start with that. It's always a question that I get from people, and maybe I've answered this question in this review, but I'm gonna give you this ending. Essentially, if you have the means, if you have the money, absolutely go for the X5 M. It is a very capable SUV. It is based on the X5, which arguably it's BMW's best crossover they've ever offered. Of course, you can still get the X3 M40i or X3M, which are great driving cars. But the X5 M has always felt like the jack of all trades. Essentially, it can be a luxury SUV, it can be an M car, and of course, it's a car that you can drive 365 days of the year. X5 M versus X6M, always a tough choice, and it really comes down to styling and interior space. The X5 M is the more versatile option, of course, the one that you'll have a lot more room inside, especially headroom in the back. And of course you will get additional cargo space, but then again there are people that want a more sporty looking SUV or a crossover coupe as they call the S6M, and that's why they're offering that option. The X5 M, it's by far the more popular choice when it comes to the two, and this is why you see them on the road a lot more, because they're a lot more versatile. So it really comes down to your personal choice. If it was my car, I would definitely go for the X5 M because I can use this as a family hauler. I have a lot of space, yet it's somewhat understated, and when you push it hard, it can actually deliver a lot of power almost instantly. So this is the BMW X5 M 2024 competition facelift. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.